Hey everybody, and welcome to another amazing and exciting episode of Finding Peaks. Yours truly, President and Founder, Chief Executive Officer, Chris Burns. So excited to be joined by our community outreach specialists and alumni, first client. Let's make sure we get the resume correct. Nik Darrah, great to have you on the show, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be back, and I'm happy to be a part of this company now. It's amazing.
It's like I was at a conference. I just got back from Emergence 2024.
Yeah.
And one of the women that was up there speaking as one of the keynote speakers, she talked about working in the field similar to you for years.
Yeah.
Before coming back to a place that she called home. She was like, and her place was this place called the Friendly House. Yeah. And they called her up and said, hey, would you want to come back do an X, Y, and Z? And she's like, would I want to come home?
Yeah.
I bet that experience has been really, really cool. Maybe tell the viewers what that's been like. I mean, 10 years later, Nik.
10 years, I know. And when you said that, it actually gave me goosebumps a little bit because it feels the exact same way. Like when I'm talking to people, they're like, how are things going? And I'm like, I'm home. Like this is where I was meant to be. You know what I mean? Like I come in and I know the HR person and the owner and the ED and all of these people, and it felt so welcoming. And I've been there about a month-ish now, maybe a little longer. And I feel like I've worked here forever. Like it just feels like I'm like part of, ingrained in the family.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so magical to come from working in the industry where I've had amazing jobs and I've met amazing people to then transition back to where I learned like what it was for me and what changed my life and made me the person I am today.
Yeah.
And so to have the experience to sit at the table, if you will, in that way is so impactful, and it's amazing. I love it here.
It's so cool to have you back, and you know, everyone was really, really excited, and we knew. I was actually at, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit, but I was at the Emergence conference, and our old outreach specialist, Jessica, was there.
Yeah.
And she's working for an adolescent program at Phoenix. She's doing really well, and she's like, I was so upset that you guys hired until I learned who it was. And she's like, and I am so happy.
Nice.
She's like, that is a beautiful fit.
Yeah.
And so I want to touch on a little bit, this conference I just went to, Emergence.
Yeah.
Emergence of what? 2024, TJ Woodward, Conscious Recovery put on this wonderful conference. Best conference I've been to by far. Most connected, most authentic, most integrated, and just very special and near and dear to my heart. Yeah. And one of the things that they talked about a lot there and that I was on a panel for was the emergence of spirituality within behavioral health.
Yeah.
And the emphasis, the overarching emphasis that we have on that, and just to see our clients.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that gets missed when we get into our biopsychs and our assessments and our front-end processes and our policies, and just to see somebody.
Yeah.
And now that we have you kind of on the marketing path, I'm reminded of the video, our 10-year video, when you say that you guys essentially saw me.
Yeah.
How do we emulate for the community from a business development perspective, like Peaks Recovery? Like, simply put, we see you.
We see you, yeah. You know, and it's a big question, but I think it can be boiled down to something really simple, and that's like keeping our values in mind of what it is, right? Like especially in a marketing or a sales or a business development role, we often think of things like tech sales, for example, right? I'm gonna sell you this software program, and we're gonna do kind of like a shotgun technique. We're gonna send this out to everyone, and they're gonna see it, and they're gonna want this product, right? And I think that works some, but I also think like, we've seen such a shift in business development from this style of a one-for-one, like if you send me a referral, I send you a referral, and getting away from this old school mentality of like body brokering, right? And that was a huge thing back in the day. Now you get felonies for it and you go to prison, which is amazing because that's exactly what should happen.
For sure.
Because this isn't a product I'm selling. This is a person. This is their life. And if they don't get it right here, they could die, like actually be dead. And so why are we trying to market it in the same way we would a laptop? You know, it doesn't make sense to do it that way. And I think switching our perception in that can be really impactful. There's a great organization here called COPLA, which stands for the Colorado Association of the Colorado Professional Liaisons Association.
There we go.
That's what it is, yeah. And they do things to build ethical treatment and business development in the behavioral health industry, right? And I think that really speaks to the culture of what we see in marketing here, right? And how instead of this old school mentality, we're shifting to see the client as a person who needs help, right? And so when I get a referral out from someone or they call us and we can't take them for whatever reason, I don't just go, okay, well, like, here's your insurance option, call them, bye, right? Like, I spend time, I get to know the families, I get to know them and say, okay, well, you're telling me that your child needs help with schoolwork and they have borderline personality disorder, and this is the insurance you have. And I go through my little Rolodex, you know, or whatever, and pull names that really fit that client, right? So I'm sending them out there regardless if I know they're going to send back to me, because that's not the goal, right?
Yeah.
It's to place this person in this care. And I think I have some examples. Like, I worked with this mother for 2.5 months. I would call her once a week, right? Trying to find a good fit for her son, because he had pretty high needs, right? And I'm talking to her, and I would just call her to check in, see how things are going, you know? And the sound of her voice throughout those months, right? Like, it started so hopeless. She's like, I've called 15 places and they just say nothing. They can't take him and that's all. But you call and you check in and you provide real support and you're trying to learn what we do. And it's so cool and amazing. And I'm just really grateful for that, right? And that, I think, is that shift, right? Seeing this person as a person who has a family, who has loved ones, who's trying to do better and do one of the hardest things they've probably ever done in their life. Now, my job is to help that happen, facilitate that. And what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know?
It really, you know, what's coming up for me as you said that is like giving reverence to this process.
Yeah.
Like, we are so privileged to be walking with humans.
Yes.
And I love the admissions team. They developed it themselves. It was a listen first, solve later. But I like the idea of like listen first, walk later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a human right there. And if we can see that human appropriately, that human has needs specific to that individual.
Right.
And if we can begin to, potentially for the first time in that person's life, begin to cater to those needs, those inherent needs, we can create a process that's much more fluid and opportunistic, not just for the treatment program, but for the individual.
Right.
You know? And they get to come in and they get to settle and experience things that they haven't been experiencing, like safety and connection and attunement.
Absolutely.
So I love that you're moving and you're creating that energy, and that Peaks can be a part of or at the forefront with some of these more integrous providers to ensure that, like, we don't need to walk with everybody. We just need to walk with the people that need us the most.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's how we create change in the industry, right? Like this thought of connectiveness, right? So like, if we show up that way and we know this organization shows up that way and then this organization does, when a new person comes, they're either going to show up in the positive way and be part of the group, or they're going to kind of be on the outskirts and they're not really going to last, right? And I think that it goes back to this idea of how we're connected and how one conversation can change the trajectory of so many people, you know?
Yeah. How are you finding in the provider community?
Yeah.
Are you finding that there are, within the state of Colorado and specifically on the Front Range, are you finding that we have most resources covered in a really, really authentic way? Or are you finding that there's reasonable foreseeability a lot to refer out of state for specific issues?
I think it's a balance, right? I would say it's probably 50-50, right? There are some out-of-state programs that are phenomenal, and there's nothing like it here, right? And so if that's going to be the best fit and it's feasible and doable, right? Why not go to the program that's out of state that's going to give you the best chance of success?
Yeah.
I think I've seen clients from everywhere across the United States in my professional life, and I think it really is about what's going to be best for you in that moment to move forward, right? Because at the end of the day, I can come in and say, you need to do blah, 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 X, Y, Z every moment. And you can do those things, but when you leave here, if that's not you, if that's not going to be something you do, it won't matter. You're going to go back to doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah, that's beautifully stated. And how do you think it's going to land? You know, because you're really just first 4 weeks. You know, I know you've gotten some referrals and things like that, but it hasn't been necessarily your intention.
Yeah.
How do you think it lands going out into community, and instead of selling this like mutually exclusive, we do mental health, and I heard it in California, I was just like, okay, this substance use house, this is a mental health house, and these are separated and it's different. How do you think it's going to be received, or maybe you've already experienced how it's being received when you're going out and like, hey, like we treat suffering and we actually treat this population together really, really well. And I wonder if it's the separation. Yeah. And I don't know, I'm not an expert, but I wonder if it's the separation of the two that continues to have unnecessary weighted shame on one human or another. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, like just in the community, because you don't hear a lot of it. I was just at a conference, everybody's like, substance use, mental health, substance use, mental health. It's like, do we treat humans, or what do we do here?
Yeah, and I think if I'm really gonna boil it down and I think simplify it, like substance use is a mental health condition, right?
Yeah.
So like, people don't just go out and become addicted to drugs because their life is so great and everything's going good, right? Like it's a coping skill that we use, whether that is to numb yourself from everything, or maybe you are dealing with some mental health diagnosis symptoms, right? And so then substances take those away, right? And I think that's super true for anything from paranoid schizophrenia to generalized anxiety, right? Like if you're anxious and you know you do cocaine and that makes you not feel anxious, you're probably gonna do cocaine, right? Because that's how you live your life. And I think the shift and evolution in substance use treatment specifically is shifting more towards a mental health base, right? Because if you don't treat those underlying conditions, it doesn't matter if they stop using drugs for 30 days, those things are gonna creep back in, and then here we are. Back in treatment again for whatever the 5th, 6th, 7th, 15th time, depending on the client, right? And if we can shift that to think of substance use as a mental health condition, because it is, then all treatment centers are going to be mental health, right? And there's going to be specialties, right? Like your program might be DBT specialized to treat borderline personality disorder. You might be more CBT based and you can treat depression, right? And that's great. And substance use fits in there. So I think the real shift is happening at a lot of these well-established treatment centers to go from this traditional addiction recovery model that's been around since the 30s into a more nuanced approach that takes into account a whole person and how to treat them wholly as opposed to symptomatically.
Huge. And words, as we were talking about before the show, now we're back to this thing like words matter.
Words matter.
And like, it's like, okay, so I'm gonna come in, and it's being really well received. Like in California, I went up there, and when I said we treat suffering, it was like, it may be the first time they'd heard that in this room. You know, and because if I'm gonna go to a substance use treatment center, I mean, Tommy Rosen said it best on, he gave a talk right at the end there, and he said, okay, I'm gonna go get my substance use treated. Now I don't have any more substance use issues. Well, holy shit, now I'm fucked, excuse my French, because now all the other issues are here and I don't have my coping mechanism. And now this is a real bad time. You wanna talk about like hanging on. And that's why I really love the 12 steps early on, because it's kind of a desperation model. And we can show up there in this calamity and create some potential serenity and some synergy. But I love that you can go out into community now and really, every time I've brought it up, it's been really well received. Oh, all ages. Oh, mental health and this, and let me talk about how it, that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think it makes sense, and I think it is really well received, and I also think it challenges stigma, right? Because people sometimes, depending on who you are, can really rationalize mental health, right? They're like, depression is real, that's a real thing, where they can't do that for substance use, or vice versa, right? And I think when we speak of it as a whole condition, which is a mental health condition and a behavioral health field, right? Then we, in the stigma of like, oh, this is a drug addict, right? They don't deserve this stuff. They did these things to themselves, right? Which is a belief a lot of people have had and has shifted a lot, which has been great.
It's not only on that substance use side, it takes the weight off the substance abuse, but also the person who's depressed at home and doesn't have those types of substance issues is like, fuck, I can get help now too. So it pushes us closer together and not further apart. And so that can only be
connected. Connectedness, absolutely. And I think it's being honest with who you really are, right? And being able to be authentically yourself in the moment, whether that shows up with your substance use issues or your mental health issues or whatever things you're walking through in your life, and learning that it's okay to have those things and how do I move forward through it, right? And it doesn't make me a bad person, it doesn't make me weak or whatever we've heard.
Exactly.
You know?
It's really cool, man. Just like personally, professionally. We've been spending a lot of time together lately.
Yeah.
And how does it feel to be able to go out into community? And maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, if this doesn't feel right, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But how does it feel to go out in community and like you don't have to sell anything?
It's amazing. I like it.
Like it just is what it is.
It is what it is, right? Like I'll go in the community and I'll say, oh yeah, I work for Peaks Recovery Center. And immediately people are like, oh yeah, we love them, you know? And so they're like, I'm so excited to be able to get there, show up, and how do I get to come to your site just to check it out, right? And I think that reputation comes from the quality care that is given to the clients, right? It's not about the word of mouth, of what the website looks like or what's posted on Facebook, right? It's about these clients have left our care, and whether they're going to do aftercare, they're seeing a therapist, their family is seeing a therapist, whatever the case is, they speak so highly of what they've gained here as a client, right? Which then trickles out into the community. And so to be able to just walk into a room and have people know exactly what we do without even really having to push it is amazing. And I think probably if you're in business development, anyone's dream, honestly.
Yeah. I can just talk about the new add-ons or some of the new things we're doing. But Peaks is what we are, who we say we are, and we've been that way for 10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's a really crazy to even think that I know we just celebrated the 10-year thing, but to move out into community with that authenticity and that story is really, really cool. And it's, you wear it so well because your last 10 years speaks so wholeheartedly to what this process, if entered into courageously, can provide for you.
It's very true. I mean, it's so wild to think about. I was just talking with someone who was a client around the same time as me, and this thought of like, sure, it was a different style of treatment, right? But it was exactly what I needed in that moment to be who I am today. And if I didn't have this and I didn't show up the way that I did in treatment, would I be here? Would I be doing the things that I'm doing, right? And the answer is no, obviously. But then it reminds me of the impact I have on people, right? I come from a clinical background. I did a lot of clinical work, and I just got a call yesterday. I'm like amazed by this. From someone, and they were talking about their sober living they opened, and they went, is this Nik? And I went, it is, yeah. And they were like, oh, did you work at so-and-so? And I went, yeah. And I went, I was your client, and you changed my life.
Dang.
And like to hear that, I'm gonna cry. It was like so impactful, right? Because it's something that you don't really think about, you know what I mean? It's like, I did what I needed to for that client because I cared about them and I wanted their life to change. And now I get to work with them professionally in such a different way. That's something I haven't really experienced in my life. And it's so magical when I think about it. Like all of this stemmed from a phone call and like a trust that I had when I was in a 28-day treatment center that I heard. I was like, this program's opening. Do you want to come be a part of it? You're going to be the leader there, is what I heard.
Yeah.
And I went, all right, yeah, I'm here for it.
I want to be a leader.
That's right. Yeah. I was like, I don't know, but I was. Here we are. You know?
That's so cool, man. And it's just like, it's just so full circle. I was watching this podcast.
Yeah.
And it was a Rich Roll podcast. I love Rich Roll.
Yeah.
And there was a gal on there speaking, and I forget her name, unfortunately. But she talked about now creating purpose in recovery, and like why sometimes does it have to be these, like, you know, for me it's like, I'm gonna go hike these 100 mountains. I'm gonna go do a marathon. I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna be a fighter. Yeah. You know, it's like just slow down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you brought it up so eloquently for the viewers. You're like, if I can slow down for a moment and hear what that client just told me, my purpose is right in front of me in the moments that I get to experience in presence with other humans. That is the purpose of my life today. And I heard that on a podcast, and I just needed to be able to zoom out a little bit because, Nik, when we slow down, that wasn't the first call you've gotten like that.
No.
This is an extraordinary experience we're walking through. You as an alumni, me as a founder, 10 years removed, personally, professionally. We are beyond blessed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right on. I mean, it is, I say that was like the experience I've had, but that's not true. Like I see clients all the time at different places and they're doing different things. And so you're right, it is about like slowing down in that moment and like being present and here for it. And I think, I don't know what I think. I think it's like indescribable almost, like what happens to you when you can get there, right?
Yeah.
It's like this, like the term of enlightenment, if you will, right? Like you're just here.
Yeah, and what did they say before enlightenment?
What do they
Chop wood, carry water.
Oh.
What did they say after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water.
Oh.
I heard that again this week
Okay,
too.
okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that is what they say. So the work is there. Like before enlightenment, we do the thing.
Yeah.
After enlightenment, we do the thing.
We do the thing, yeah.
Well, I didn't want to leave this episode, Nick, without expressing my gratitude for you, professionally, personally, relationally. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to show up for you, your recovery, and thanks for showing up for me in so many different facets and days and opportunities that we've had to spend together. And I look forward to walking moment by moment with you out into community and really just sharing with people the good news that we have going on over here.
Yeah, I do too, and I feel so blessed and fortunate to be a part of this and to have this in my life. And it's something I talk about with my family all the time, right? Is like how fortunate I am in this and how different it could be out there.
Yeah.
So I feel blessed, and anything I can do, always, I'm here for it.
Appreciate you so much, man. We'll have to get an update as you go out there. You know, he'll be spending some time out in the community doing his thing. And so we'll have you on here in the next 6 months. Bring on some of your friends, some like-minded individuals who want to connect authentically, attune, and work together to make magic happen for individuals that need it the most. Nik Darrah, everybody, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time, my amazing humans, peace.